Hello and welcome to the new Chang International Circuit in Buriram, Thailand for round one of the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup for 2015. This series is for riders aged 12 to 18 that are based in Asia, and for this year, Australasian riders are on the grid as well. They're all on same machinery, the Honda NSF 250R, and it is a great new series backed by the FIM, of course, for riders to get themselves integrated into championship racing, and there are prizes on offer as well if you do go on to win. Last year's champion, for example, Kaito Toba, will this year ride in both the FIM CEV Repsol team, the actual Asia Talent Cup team, and the top three riders from last year will be joining him in that. So they'll be racing in the CEV Repsol. And also last year's champion into the Red Bull Rookies Cup as well. There are 21 riders down on the grid, all equal machinery. Luckily for us, or unluckily, whichever way you want to look at it, they've all got exactly the same leathers on. And am I right in thinking, Greg, that they all have exactly the same helmets on as well? Steve Day here alongside Gregory Hayes.
You certainly are, Steve. It was certainly a bit of confusion for us in the commentary with the inaugural season of the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup in 2014. Yes, identical liveries, identical crash helmet colours as well. The only real means of identification were the numbers on the fronts of the fairings of the bikes. It certainly made for some very interesting viewing for us and some interesting challenges from the commentary box as well. But this is then the start of the second season in the Asia Talent Cup. Watch out then for this man, Ayuma Sasaki, the Japanese rider. An incredible victory at Motegi last year. What an amazing finish to the race that was when Yuta Date went mowing his way down the grass verge. Sasaki came through to take that victory towards the end of last season, starting third on the grid then. There was a qualifying session here this morning which has decided the grid for both races. We have this one coming up now at 1:30 this afternoon local time on Saturday, another one at 11:30 tomorrow morning.
So an exciting time for these riders. It's round one of six. A six-round championship across 5 different countries. 2 races at each round, starting here at the new Chang International Circuit in Thailand. From here, they will then move on to Lusail next week to join up with the MotoGP paddock for Qatar. Then round 3, Sepang. They'll be back with us in the World Superbike paddock. Then they go to Zhuhai in China for round 4. That's for a national championship. Then they're back with MotoGP paddock. They'll be going to Motegi round 5 and then ending up in Sepang. So 12 races all in all, 6 rounds in 5 different countries. A superb opportunity here. There's Kazuki Masaki. And as I mentioned before, all of these riders on exactly the same machinery. We've popped down to have a little look at the bikes. And, well, you were obviously quite surprised at how diddy some of the bikes are, but indeed how diddy some of the riders are themselves.
Absolutely, not least the rider who starts on pole position, which is Helmi Asman. I'm really pleased, actually, in a way. We have to stay neutral, of course, but he's a really lovely guy. It's great to see him and all of his efforts paying off, to see Asman starting on his very first pole position, actually, in the Asia Talent Cup. He's one of the several riders who have actually continued from last season based on their results. The champion, Kaito Toba, as Steve has already mentioned, is not in this cup this year. He's got so many things to do, though, in the CEV Moto3 team, the Asia Talent team, as it's been named, and Toba, Yuta Date and Adam Norridin are making up the lineup there, and Toba also competing in Red Bull Rookies. So that leaves 12 new riders. very soon. Quite a long way down the grid, and that's the situation for tomorrow as well, because qualifying has decided the grid, just as it does in World Superbike, for both races.
I'm pleased to say that originally when we thought that all riders would have the same helmets on, well, they're not, which is quite handy for us. But there you can see just on pole position there, number 11, as Greg mentioned a little while ago, Helmi Asman. Further back, here's Somkya Chantra, number 18, 16-year-old. He was 11th overall in the 2014 Asia Talent Cup Series. Best result of a 4th place at the final round.
And he's been going well this pre-season as well. Topped the test, the 3-day test at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia in February. So watch out for Chantra. Home crowd behind as well. Incidentally, listen to the atmosphere out there. There's a load of people packed into the huge grandstand here at the Chang International Circuit. It's a capacity of 40,000. Quite sure what the figure is today, but there's a lot of them there. There they are in the background. We're located, incidentally, at the top of the grandstand there, so we've got a good view. On the left-hand side, you can see of the... wow, look at all the crowd up there, Steve.
Yeah, there's quite a few there, isn't there? All waving their flags around. Massive Yamaha flag up there as well, and so... well, they'll be disappointed that Yamaha aren't in World Superbikes, but maybe not for much longer. That might be changing soon. But this is going to be an interesting race here. 21 riders, 16 laps. And, well, based on your thoughts, Greg, certainly what you mentioned from some of the rounds that you commentated on this from last year, they tend to be quite close races as well.
They definitely do. The style of the riders is quite remarkable. Don't forget, this is the debut on the international racing scene of many of these riders. They've come up from national cups going on in their home countries. Japan, of course, was a favourite in terms of front runners last year. A lot of Japanese were up there at the top of the table. In fact, looking down, Toba, Date, Kanunime, Sasaki, top 4 of last year's final standings were all from Japan, and it was an 18-point margin in the end between Toba and Date. But don't forget Yuta Date, he remains in this field. Japanese rider, he led for the whole of the Cup last year until we got to the doubleheader at Sepang at the end of the campaign in October, and cruel luck really, lost out the lead at the end of the first race, and then was taken out in an incident on the first lap while he was running second in the final race. So watch out for Date. Having said that, though, he had a struggle here yesterday. He's starting 15th on the grid, so let's see how he can fight through from there. He is number 6, and look, problems already then. That's Tom Edwards, that's the 13-year-old Australian. He's been drafted in. He was one of the 5 reserve riders drafted in at the last moment, pretty much. Only last week that was confirmed. Can they get him started?
Oh, bad news, and that's really disappointing there. The last thing that you want, but these machines are quite temperamental, and this does happen occasionally as we start the warm-up lap and they head down towards turn 3. And on one of these little NSF 250Fs, that will be a very long straight indeed for these machines. The circuit looks so much wider when you look at these little bikes around them compared to the World Superbike that we've been commentating on. They now pull into pit lane. They're going to try and get this one started. It does, and he will probably have to start now from the back of the grid.
Good news then for Tom Edwards. He's replacing Bangga Suyaya, who was an Indonesian rider who was set to take part. There's also another change with one of the Malaysians. Suziat has been replaced by Fakuzi Rostam. You'll know his name because he was competing in the first season last year, the Malaysian. So 2 changes there, based really on the lap times from the Sepang test. 2 riders were quite a long way off the pace, so they've been drafted in 2 of the reserves. That leaves 3 further reserves who may get their chance later on in the season, depending on how things go.
Yeah, and the main aim for these riders, as you've probably seen on the arms of a few, is the road to the Red Bull Rookies Cup, of course. And if you can make it into that series and then make a name for yourself there, then ultimately speaking, it could be Moto3 in Grand Prix level. So the path is pretty much set for them if you can get successful. But there's a fine line between, you know, just getting one decent result and actually winning this championship. 12 races, as I mentioned. And last year, you were just mentioning that it could have gone completely the opposite way, with Date being in such a strong position up until the end.
Absolutely, and with 3 or 4 races together, it's still 4, perhaps even 5 riders in contention, and it really was a lot of tension as well at Motegi and then Sepang at the end of the season. Back-to-back races there, of course, as they supported the MotoGP World Championship. But it really is a great initiative put together by the FIM, Dorna Sports, Alberto Puig's, of course, the talent scout, the renowned talent scout who's very much behind the MotoGP Academy. Brought the likes of Casey Stoner, Danny Pedrosa through, Chaz Davis as well, of course, who's racing here in Superbike this weekend. It's a 16-lap race then. will line up on the grid now, 3x3 as always, and who knows what to expect. I'm expecting a few fireworks here.
Yep, one race today, and their second race will take part tomorrow before the action kicks off on Sunday here in Thailand. But the first race that we will see in 2015 around this new Chang International Circuit, which is just fantastic. And the infield section that looks quite tight and twisty, certainly for the bigger machines that we've got here with World Superbike and Supersport, doesn't necessarily look like it allows itself for overtaking. I think that might be turned on its head for these guys. You'll be seeing overtaking in places you never thought you'd be able to see overtaking, as the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup for 2015 is set to lift off here.
It's like Shafiq Razal there, starting 8th on the grid, coming through right at the end. He's the last to form it. They've got the green flag at the back, so we should be seeing those red lights anytime soon.
Look out for the pole man then, Helmi Asman and Nakarin Atirapuvapat, who actually took a tumble into turn 1 earlier in qualifying. Away from the line we go, and it looked like a good start from all three on the front row, but in particular number 13 Atirapuvapat. As we go down into turn 1, there is pole man Helmi Asman that has taken the advantage, and I'm absolutely astonished that they've all managed to make it through there without there being anyone tripped up, Greg.
Perfect start by Asman, the Malaysian, the 15-year-old, first ever pole position, and heading the pack as they make their way down towards the very tight turn 3 for the first time. There's a Atirapuvapat on the inside line. You've got number 10, that's Adam Norridin on the outside, and are they all going to make it through cleanly? Hold your breath at turn 3.
Oh, it's very tight through there. Really good start for number 22 as well, Ayumi Sasaki, the 14-year-old from Japan. You can see him just on the left of your screen, but then flying through is number 11 there, Helmi Asman, the pole man, as they now come into a really quick downhill left-hander into turn 4.
Oh, side by side, doesn't get much closer than that, but 13 does tip ahead. That is Atirapuvapat, the Thai rider, twice on pole position last season. Look at the waffle there for Jerry Salim, the Indonesian, under braking for the left-hander at turn 5. Amazingly, they're all still going. No contact so far by the looks of things. That is a credit to all of them. Remember, they're all so inexperienced, and now this battle raging for second place, but they just need to settle it down. There's a long, long way to go. 16 laps here.
Another rider that has made a really good start is number 18, Somkiat Chantra, the 16-year-old, number 18 there. Well, these riders are changing positions at every single opportunity.
And we did see a few first lap incidents last lap incidents as well. It usually tended to be the first or the last lap that we saw the crashes going on. So, as I say, brilliant first lap here at Chang. Down to this very, very tight final corner, turn 12. Races will certainly be won and lost here. Did you see the line taken there by Ayumi Sasaki, twice a race winner last season, the Japanese rider? And across the line they go. It's Atirapuvapat from Chantra. Don't forget, Chantra was very quick in testing. Then it's Asman from pole down to 3rd from Sasaki, and Masaki is completing the top 5.
Chantra's got a beautiful riding style for a rider that's so young. Number 18 in 2nd place. He's come from 9th on the grid. What a fabulous first lap that was for the Malaysian in 2nd place, and now they all spread out, and it's 4 abreast. It's nearly 5 abreast as number 13 Atirapuvapat comes through as well, and it's number 22 Ayumi Sasaki. This could be carnage.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. Don't forget, if you were watching last year, by the way, all of the riders that have continued in the Cup, and that's 10 of them, are at least maintaining the same numbers. All the others, though, with brand new numbers. Look how close this is, though, and expect this for the whole race. We usually see a group, don't we, breaking away, just as we do, really, in the Moto3 World Championship. Look at that, though, right up on the outside curves there was Chantra.
What always amazes me is for such young riders on Moto3 bikes, and it's the same as you say for the World Championship Moto3, is how there's so much respect and with each other. They're not just barging into each other. There is actually quite a lot of respect and some clever heads on some young shoulders out there.
Tell you what surprises me, Steve. Yuta Dase started 15th on the grid, led the championship for most of the season last year. He's still down there in 15th position. Something just hasn't quite clicked for Yuta Dase. Having said that, he is carrying an injury. He's actually injured his left leg. There's a muscle injury there, and that was picked up in a training session in Catalonia. Somebody running out very wide there from turn 10, but it was a training session in Catalonia before the Sepang test in February, so that may well explain why Date is in a bit of trouble here.
Might even be a situation where, under normal circumstances, Date might not have taken part in the race at all, but he's thinking, well, based on last year, I need every single point possible.
I think that's good logic there. It makes sense, because if you think of all the points, somebody completely off the road in the background. Think of all the points on offer. It's 25 points and another one going off into the distance. That was 14. That was Chen, one of the two Chens, actually. running off wide in the background. That was Peng Guanchen, the 17-year-old Chinese rider, off in the background. But as I was saying, the championship point system is exactly the same as it is in MotoGP and World Superbike. So 50 points and a big high side in the background. Somebody's gone down coming out of turn one. Let's hope he's okay.
Yeah, massive crash that in the background there. We'll get confirmation for you in a moment. But so far on lap 3 of 16, it's Attila Puvpat that leads from Chantra. Chantra with that really smooth riding style. And there we go. That was further back. Number 5, McKinley Path of the Philippines has gone down. And I would imagine he'll be a bit winded after that. That was over at turn 1, so the yellow flags are out over there. Meanwhile, the leaders have gone round turn 4, that fast turn 4, and here is Attila Puvpat just up ahead of Masaki now. Number 2, the 14-year-old from Japan, who was 5th in an Asian Championship last year, based mainly in Japan. Number 18 there, Chantra, is in 3rd place, ahead of Sasaki, number 22.
And Path, incidentally, who we just saw crash there, started at the back of the grid, so he was obviously trying to fight through. We're seeing Ryder okay on the timing stream. We saw him standing up. May well be a trip to the medical centre, usually just precautionary, and hopefully that is the case. This is then, in the meantime, the left-hander of turn 10. You have a lovely flowing nature to the track, particularly with these Moto3 bikes. Look at this. You couldn't be much closer to the back of Nakarina Turupat, could you, Masaki?
No, one of the biggest problems that they've got there is, we mentioned in superbikes, there's just no room, and that's number 18, is it Chantra, who's taking the pit lane entry for that's a new racing line altogether. That might not go down too well as he rejoins the circuit. It's not the quickest way around this Chang International Circuit, but either way, Chantra there has rejoined. He's very quick though, as you mentioned, quick throughout testing, therefore we expect him to join on, and with these guys all slipstream each other, I don't think it'll be long before he's actually with the top 3 again.
I completely agree with you, because last year we did see a few races where 2 leaders would typically break away. We were starting to say, oh, this is a 2-horse race, and all of a sudden you had 6 riders locked together again as they got to the checkered flag at the end of the race. But yeah, you're right, we are seeing a few novel lines, aren't we, around the Chang International Circuit, and the Asia Talent Cup riders are quite good at that. But don't forget, they're completely learning. They're on the world stage for the first time. Some of them have come, as I say, from their national championships, and now all of a sudden they're racing in front of all the famous riders in the World Superbike Championship, and then of course MotoGP next weekend when they get to Qatar.
Look at them all just taking the slipstream there, and Attila Puvpat has gone down to 3rd place. Masaki has moved up, and Sasaki. Masaki and Sasaki, do us a favour. There they are then in 1st and 2nd place. Attila Puvpat has dropped down a bit. Asman there, number 11. Also a rider to keep an eye out for is number 10, Adam Noureddin from Malaysia, 16-year-old. Of course, he's got experience quite well. He's been around a bit already, and he's been selected for that CEV Repsol Asia Talent Cup team as well. So keep an eye on him. He's keeping himself quite quiet so far.
Yeah, racing with his brother last year. Ibrahim Noureddin was in the series as well. He's not continuing in the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup for 2015, but as you say, watch out for Adam Noureddin. Look at the different lines being used around the right-hander there of turn 9. It's a very, very quick corner is turn 9, as is this one, 11, leading you down towards the very, very tight 12 at the end of the lap. Now, let's see what sort of lines we're seeing this time. Who's going to be outside the white line on the outside of the track? Looks good enough so far.
Masaki it is that regains the lead from Attila Puvpat. Attila Puvpat is one of those riders, you see it so often, that just doesn't like to fall anywhere beyond 3rd place. He's always there in the top 3.
Certainly is. He was quick in qualifying as well with 2 pole positions last year. 19-year-old now, the Thai rider, and how would they love to see a Thai rider winning the first of the races to be staged here this weekend. This is that really long run down towards the right-hander at turn 3, and they're just, of course, now sizing each other up. We're going to see constant changes for the lead throughout the race, sizing each other up, ready for that all-important 16th and last lap later on.
Ayuma Sasaki, who will always also ride in the Red Bull Rookies himself in 2015, the 14-year-old who was 4th overall in this championship. He has got some wild and inventive lines going on, the number 22, so keep your eyes pinned out for him. It just doesn't really matter whether he goes inside or outside. He always ends up popping himself inside the top 5. Masaki it is that just leads from Attila Puvpat and Asman.
Fastest lap so far has gone to Masaki, by the way, on a 47.7. They're all putting in low to mid 48s at the moment. No jump starts as well, by the way, was flashed up on the timing screen. So that's good news, bearing in mind the relative inexperience throughout this 21 rider field. 20 of them running now, of course, in the race because Path crashed out earlier on. Edwards is still running, by the way, from the delayed, or I should say the problem earlier on when he stopped on the grid. They couldn't get the bike away. Started the race from the back of the grid, and Edwards is some 29 seconds behind. So it's a bit of a struggle on his debut then for Edwards. Look at this going on, and that's 11 versus 22. That's Helmi Asman, the pole sitter, just edging out Sasaki, and we know Sasaki's a hard charger. We saw that last year.
Look at the front end patter from these bikes as they head into turn 12 and onto the start-finish straight. I would suggest that you might not necessarily want to be leading going into that final turn at the moment because you're going to get T-boned by someone, but it's still Attila Puvapat that has the advantage from Masaki, and Attila Puvapat's lap time was a 47.5 that time around.
I have to say I'm impressed by the clean racing we're seeing. We saw quite a few antics last season, and I'm sure we'll see more because the riders are, as I keep saying, extremely inexperienced. But look at this, it's getting very, very tight down to the right-hander at turn 3.
Line, there was no going back. I mean, if he'd have gone down, he'd have taken at least 2 riders with him. Good stuff there from Chantra, who went wide into the final turn. In the background there, you got Marshall's legging it towards somebody that's fallen down at turn 3.
Yes, that must have happened just outside of camera shot. Obviously, we were quite rightly concentrating on Chantra. What's happened here? You've got the 17 gone down, which is Fakuzi Rostam, and the number 12 as well. That is Yamanaka, the Japanese rider. Now it's a race then for the Marshalls to get them back into round 1.
Yeah, and both riders were just outside the top 10, not a million miles away from the leading pack, so that's bad news for those guys. There's a big gap now forming behind the top 10, so it's out of those guys.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just looking down the time sheets as I started this lap, 2.5 seconds covered the top 10, and as you say, Steve, another 5 seconds then back to Agura, who's running around in 11th place. Darte, by the way, is picking off a few, but also making the most of the attrition ahead of him. He's up to 13th place now.
So, number 2, Masaki, up ahead of Attila Puvapat, and Chantra, number 18, as they head on to the start-finish straight once more. Number 22 then follows Sasaki, then it's Asman, Noruddin, Salim, Izdihar, Kunimene, and Rasul.
And interestingly, Izdihar, running around in 8th place, has just set the fastest lap of the race. That was a very different line once again, wasn't it? This time from Helmi Asman, the pole sitter. But Izdihar then has caught this lot, 1.5 behind. He's at the back of the pack, number 23. He's last but 2 now. So look at this. We've got a 10-rider scrap for the lead of the opening race of the season. There's going to be fireworks here, aren't there, later on in the race? And then down to turn 12 at the end of the lap as well.
Yeah, well, I would say so. As they come around here, you can see Attila Puvapat, who throughout most of qualifying this morning was quickest until the fall into turn 1, and then eventually of course Asman went on to take pole position, but now Masaki has benefited from the slipstream. He's moved up ahead in 3rd place there. Still looking a threat, I have to say, is Chantra, who fell quite far back once he went wide down into the final turn, but has made it back, and there he moves up into 2nd place.
Yeah, good run. At least he did that early on in the race, I suppose. It was worth the lunge and running out wide, released the brake, didn't he? He let himself run out a little bit wide early on. It's interesting as well, we're seeing passing into the left-hander down at turn 5, which would be pretty much impossible, wouldn't it, on the World Superbikes that we're seeing racing here for the first time this weekend. Look at the lunges, though, that he's making there in 2nd place. That's Chantra. Don't forget, we know he is quick. He was quick in testing at Sepang back in February, and there's your confirmation of what Steve was saying earlier, bottom of the screen, that position progression. He's up from 9th on the grid and running around now with the hounds at the front of the race. In fact, diving out to the inside. He's going to dispatch of Masaki for the lead. Can he make it stop? Yes, he can.
The thing is about races like this, as you well know, Greg, from commentating on various Moto3 races and some epic ones at that, is with them all being absolutely the same bike, there's absolutely no way that any of these can get away because it's just a consistent slipstream battle. The only tactics that you can actually have is, well, and there's someone that's gone down out of the leading pack. Who was that? Was that number 23, Izdihar? We were just talking him up, and he's gone down there. He's up and he's okay, but I think that was Izdihar, who'd previously set the fastest lap.
Yes, it was. What a shame. He was catching the leading group and out of the race by the looks of things. Is the bike badly damaged? Well, too badly damaged by the looks of things to get back into the action. So Andy Izdihar on his debut is out. Let's see what happened. Look for the 23 in the back of the shot. Just a little bit too wide by the looks of things. Touched the white line, the curb coming out of turn 1, and it's curtains.
Yeah, let's not forget we still had some rain this morning, so the white lines, and certainly there's some AstroTurf areas that would still be very, very wet indeed. Not that number 22 there, Sasaki, minds. He just went straight over the white line in the curbs. He does not mind at all. Not one bit, look. He's actually on the curbs more than he's on the black stuff.
Outrageous. 5 abreast into the left-hander at turn 4. Fantastic. You only see that, don't you, really, in this championship?
And what I was going to say, just before Izdihar fell out of the picture here, is due to the fact that no one can get away out front, the only tactics that you can really have, try and make sure that you're consistently in the top 5. If there's a door open, take it, because on the last lap, if you're not in that top 5, the chances of you winning are slim, unless, of course, they'll wipe each other out.
And how many times have we seen that in the Moto3 World Championship as well? Guys like Alexis Masbou last year, we were talking about some of those epic races. Remember Bruno managed to cut through, didn't he? Got himself in the perfect position for the end of the race. Louis Salom used to do it back in 2013. Perfect timing, and then he would pull away from the pack. Don't expect anyone to be pulling away from the pack here, but you do need to be in a position to attack as you get down to the last lap of the race. So we're coming through to complete lap 8 of 16. We're at half race distance.
Half race distance, and still one of 9 riders that can win this race, which is absolutely astonishing. I did most of them a disservice by saying that there wouldn't be that many finishes, but we've only had a few that have gone down so far. But this is fantastic racing at the front, and the respect that they're showing for each other is remarkable, given the fact that we are looking at a series here for riders aged 12 to 18.
Alberto Puig has really been very, very strict with them. He said, as you've probably seen in the videos at the Sepang test, this is not a game. We're not here on holiday. This is a serious championship. And this is getting very, very serious now. Down at the turn 3 hairpin, the lead will keep changing. Though you've got Masaki in the group there. Masaki's number 2. Sasaki is 22. And Attila Puvapat is number 13. But what Alberto Puig has been doing is going around Sepang in the car with all of the riders. He would have done the same here in Thailand as well. Look at this again. Look at number 2. That's Masaki diving through and then just positioning himself perfectly on the inside line with Attila Puvapat. And sensible stuff as well there for Sasaki to just hold station on the outside line and not try anything silly.
Block pass there from Attila Puvapat as he tries to take the lead, but then it's taken back off him again as Masaki regains the lead. In 3rd place is Sasaki, and then we've got Asman, the pole man, in 4th place. I say pole man, I should say pole boy. These guys are absolutely the youngest of the young in terms of trying to get themselves onto the scene. And let's not forget, as you mentioned, this is serious stuff. The Asian motorcycle market is huge. They sell so many bikes. Their fans absolutely adore it. You can see that from the crowds already turning up here on a Saturday for Chang International Circuit. And these guys want to get themselves into MotoGP. And in all seriousness, if you win this championship, you're one step there.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, as it's quite well known, Honda sells more bikes in Indonesia than any other country in the world. And also, look where Repsol Honda did their team launch for MotoGP this year with Pedrosa and Marquez over in Bali. So this region really is up and coming in the motorcycle industry. And look at this, side by side in the back of the shot there, down to turn 1. That would have been around the Koninime Resolve Salim battle. But we are watching 9 riders separated by just 1.4 seconds. A huge gap then back to Ogura in 10th position of 12 seconds. Yuta Date, by the way, is fighting up. He's into 11th position now, obviously making the most of some of the crashes that have been going on in front of him. He's just got to collect as many points as possible. You'd certainly expect Date, once he's fully recovered, to be very much in contention for the remainder of the season.
If you're wondering how these guys are selected and you've not seen the video yet, it's 175 entries all in all that went into this, effectively a competition, and these are the 21/22 riders that have made it out. So we really have got the best of the best, Greg.
We have indeed. And then there was the selection event. They take part on Honda Underbone scooters at the karting circuit at Sepang. That usually happens in the week after the Malaysian Motorcycle Grand Prix, the Shell Advance Malaysian Motorcycle Grand Prix for that matter. So after the MotoGP race there, go through the selection event. Alberto Puig makes the very difficult decision, of course, as to who to choose and who to leave out on the sidelines, who to put in the list of reserve riders. And as we've seen, some of the reserves have had their chance already. We've seen the likes of Tom Edwards and Rostam, who did race in the series last year, let's not forget, be promoted to the actual lineup for the grid this season because 2 of the riders underperformed at the Sepang test back in February. But they're still flying, Steve. They're still fastest. That's been posted. Chantra, then Koninime and Fusei, who's down in 11th position, actually posted the fastest lap last time round.
You have to say that of this leading group of 9 riders, it's only really the top 4 that have shown their nose at the front of the race. They look at the moment the most likely to win, but that does not mean that we should rule out the likes of Noruddin, Asman, Rasol further back. They might just be cleverly going about their business and deciding, well, you know what, what's the point in getting involved in these scuffles in the early stages? They might wait to pounce a little later on because despite their age, as I mentioned, there's some wise heads on these young shoulders.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at Sasaki, for example, and that is him there, number 22, weaving around under braking. He won 2 races last year, one of them at Sepang, but it was the second one that he won at Motegi in Japan, that he was sitting there around 4th, 5th position. Didn't look as though he was going to win the race, and then it all hell kicked loose at the last corner, and he came through to take the victory. If you haven't seen that race, try and watch it back. Motegi last year, the first race there for the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup in what was a double header. There's the riders at the bottom of the screen there who sadly have dropped out of this race. And look at this as well, riders being pushed out wide there into the left-hander of turn 4. Very, very quick corner, fastest on the circuit here.
As we're on a lap 11 here of 16, it looks like Adam Noradin in 5th place. Number 10 is getting a little impatient now. He's caught up to the leading 4 and now wants in on the action. Maybe he can see that tiny gap that's just forming between 2nd and 3rd place. They do not want those 2 riders to get away. If if I get my words out, if Attira Puvapat manages to take Chantra with him, they could just check out. It doesn't. Maybe not. No, actually, I'll go back on that. I will go back on that because the gap has just come down again.
It's so difficult, though, isn't it, to call? It is very, very difficult because it's just twos and fro's, and it's definitely simmering as we come through to start the last few laps of the race. I see the bumpiness over the curbs and the white line there as well for Sasaki, number 22. We know he has a little bit more experience, perhaps, than some, particularly in this championship. But what about the 18? That's Somkiat Chantra down the start finish straight, leading then as we make our way into the 12th of the 16 laps here. So what's that, 5 to go now?
Or on lap 12 of 16 then of the first ever race in the 2015 Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup. And that is,
look at that.
Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 7 riders abreast going down into turn 3. Who's going to come out on top this time? It looks like number 22, Sasaki. What a great picture that would have been of them all coming down towards turn 3.
What a video. Remarkable stuff. Sasaki then at the head of the bunch. And they're still posting really, really quick lap times despite all running around in this group. Kaninime is 9th, Ogura is 10th, one of the newcomers in the field this year in 10th position. Watch out then for the likes of Kaninime coming through. We know he knows how to battle in a pack, but we haven't really seen anything like it, have we? Look at them all. This is the left-hander of turn 5, and it really is anyone's race. You could throw a blanket over the 9 of them. Any one of the 9, to be quite honest with you, could come out on top here because anything can happen, and probably will, on that last lap. Look at that.
Oh, unbelievable moving there as Helmi Asman just gets stitched up slightly by Attira Puvapat, and now coming through is Masaki as well. So a bit of a struggle over those last couple of corners for number 11, Asman, who now finds himself down in 4th.
Quick correction as well, by the way. It is still Izidar who holds the fastest lap. So sorry about that. That was earlier on in the race. The 47.2. Izidar still heading up the fastest laps, but unfortunately, as we know, retired from the race. So let's just see what happens now over the next 2 or 3 laps. With only 4 to go, what are they going to do? Is somebody going to decide to lunge up the inside? To be honest, you just don't know. It's so easy to be pushed out wide as well. We may well be seeing one of the riders going into the last corner, 5th or 6th, coming out as the leader.
There's 1.4 seconds covering the top 9, and we've hardly even mentioned Salim and Rasol as part of that group there. Number 4 and number 3, they might be at the back of that group, but they're still on the pace lap after lap as Kunimine puts in the fastest lap of that group on that last time around. I mean, it has to be said that the lap record would be tough to beat at the moment because they're constantly tripping each other up.
Don't forget Rasol as well, because he finished on the podium 4 times in the last 5 races, including a victory at Sepang, the first of the Sepang races at the end of last season. He's a winner in this Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup. He certainly knows what he's doing. And he's just playing the waiting game, I think, there, sat in the back. Dramatic riding style there from Sasaki, number 22. He was certainly one of the most exciting to watch in the 2014 campaign. And I'd tip him as a potential podium finisher here. I just think he's going to be sensible enough, providing he doesn't get wiped out by somebody. But look, somebody very, very wide there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it was entirely his fault either. We'll have to see a replay of that, but someone just got punted out wide, and that looked like it was going to happen a few corners before that. Out front here, Puvapat just looks a little uneasy sometimes with falling outside the top 2. He almost seems to panic that he's going to lose out somewhere. That might not work out for him. He's already had a couple of tumbles so far this weekend, and this is the one that counts, of course. This is where you can score points. There's no points for getting pole or 2nd or 3rd on the grid. This is the race that matters. So Attira Puvapat maybe just making a few too many moves in this race at this moment in time. But like you say, I personally do like the look of Chantra and Sasaki in 3rd and 4th place.
And talking of panic, they just need not to panic. Anyone who does run out wide, like we saw in the infield section a few moments ago, they know if they just get back on, they can still win the race. Look at the different nationalities, by the way, on the crash helmets as they took the head down under the bubble, making their way down towards the right-hander at turn 1. Jonathan Ray here, Superbike front runner this weekend's compared it to the first corner at Assen, hasn't he, the Harbosch, and we didn't really think about it at first, but he's right, isn't it? Very similar profile corner there.
Is there a gap now forming as the top 4 break slightly away from Adam Noureddin in 5th place, or will that come down again? Certainly if these guys continue to strip each other up, then we'll have a leading group of 9 again, but just for a moment there, it looks, doesn't it, like that gap is starting to form.
Yeah, you're right. Adam Noureddin needs to get his skates on now, and get his skates on, I should say, and try and catch that leading quartet, because they are definitely breaking away. We know he's got the experience, and we know he's got the know-how to do so. He just needs to keep his head down. He's got time. He's still got 2 more laps, 2.5 laps to be precise. But how quickly do we see these gaps evaporating in this Cup?
Pole rider Asman has fallen now to the back of this group, along with Kunamina, and so Rasol and Salim, number 3 and number 4, have obviously seen that gap and decided, well, we better make a move because we want a chance of winning this race. And exactly that has happened. In fairness to Adam Noureddin, he has closed that gap down. He did get his skates on. And once more, we have a bunched up group of 9 riders once more.
Tira Puvapat, incidentally, is one of the older riders in the field at 19 years of age. He's getting on a bit now, isn't he? He's nearly 20.
Well, I need to speak to someone to find out what the situation is with this being a championship for 12 to 18-year-olds. I'm not quite sure how that one works out, but we'll find out. Either way, he's still a young rider indeed, and he's enjoying the lead of this race as we tick off another lap here. We are now on lap 15 of 16.
So the penultimate tour, 1.5 seconds covering this group, as you can very well see for yourselves. Look at that gap then between 4th and 5th positions. He's closing, isn't he? He's definitely closing. Adam Noureddin is the number 10, closing in on 22, which of course is Sasaki. They make their way down the back straight. Look at Sasaki on the right-hand side. He's just shot from 4th position to the lead of the race down the outside.
We go into turn 3. Tira Puvapat there had to grab a handful of brakes and almost stopped his motorcycle completely, and he's bunched them all up again. There is a small gap between 5th place rider Noureddin and then Salim, number 4, in 6th place. But this is still great racing now, and as we've got about a lap and a half to go until the end of this one, it really is anyone's now as number 2, Masaki, comes flying through.
That was close stuff, wasn't it? Somebody running out on the curbs on the outside as well, but Sasaki doing what we suspected he might do and coming through to the front just as it starts to matter. He's dropped back to 3rd position for the time being. They will, I'm sure, be aware of how confident Sasaki was under braking for that turn 3 hairpin at the end of the back straight. Did the perfect thing you said at the warm-up lap, Steve, just how long that back straight is, and he just sat in the toe, went down the outside.
Now then, it's getting to that time of the race where if you're back in 7th, 8th or 9th, you really want to be getting a shift on. You don't want to be sitting there because your chances of winning the race are incredibly slim. You will now need to make your move to get into the top 4 or 5, and you can now see some jostling for position. At this moment in time, look at them all fanning out now, trying to get the advantage. And here comes number 18. Is he going to have enough room there? No, not quite. Chantra there moves up to 2nd place, though, ahead of Tira Puvapat, but not for long.
As you can see, the fastest lap has changed. That was Salim. Asman's just put in a quick one as well, but Salim, who's number 4, running around in 6th place, fastest rider on the track on the penultimate lap. We move then into the final lap of the very first race of the 2015 Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup. Now, we know number 22, and there he is, looking very threatening indeed. Sasaki on your left-hand side is very, very strong down this back straight and very confident under braking for the turn 3 hairpin. 2 is your leader, that's Masaki. 13 is Tira Puvapat at home in Thailand. Now, what is the number 22 going to do?
Oh, right, so hugging the inside line there, number 22. Good call, Greg. So, Sasaki comes through to lead this race, and that has given a chance to 1 or 2 others. Number 4, Salim, is looking dangerous, but here comes Tira Puvapat again as they head down towards turn 4.
Now they've got to keep their head now, because this is when the fireworks often do begin on the last lap. We've seen a number of last lap incidents across the first season. They've got to be careful. Somebody, though, being hung out to dry on the outside in the middle of the pack there. I believe that was the number 16, wasn't it? No, it was further back in the pack, sorry.
Well, Sasaki there just struggled a little bit through there as well and lost a bit of time. Our other 2 leaders leaders here, going to try and get away now as number 2 Masaki and number 18 Chantra are there. Atira Puvapat is in third place and he's right up on the curbs there. Oh, and he's running wide, and he's going to have to sit up, and that's not going to be in a win for Atira Puvapat.
And in the meantime, to the delight of the home crowd, Somkiat Chantra hit the front. What's happened now, though, as we cut to the other camera, who's got the lead of this race? It is the number 18. It is Chantra then with the lead at home in Thailand as they come down to this critical last corner.
Chantra could win at his home circuit in the first race. It's all going to be now a run to the line. Who will get it? Thai rider Somkiat Chantra has won it in front of his home crowd. The crowd will be loving that. What a move on that final lap as well for the 16-year-old who made massive improvements throughout last season. He was 11th overall in the Shell Advanced Asia Talent Cup. What a win that was for him. Atira Puvapat will be absolutely disgusted with himself of what happened on that final lap, because he looked odds on for a podium. Sasaki, as you rightly called, Greg, was a threat till the end and managed to get himself in second. And a really good run from Salim, who was in sort of 8th and 9th for the majority of the race. And on that final lap, he finds himself on the podium.
And great stuff for Salim, one of the sensible riders who sat at the back of the pack there for the back of that top 9, that is, for most of the race. Put the fastest lap in on lap 14. And Salim makes the podium in his very first race, as you say. Sasaki second, but there then is your winner, Somkiat Chantra. And as you so rightly pointed out, Steve, on the very first lap, he made a great start, didn't he, to make sure he was in there for the whole race. He came from 9th on the grid here this afternoon.
9th on the grid, and sometimes, you know, when you're riding on a home circuit, you just are able to put that something extra into it. We already knew that he was quite a talented rider, but that was something else. And on that final lap, I wonder what he must have been thinking as he goes past the grandstand, winning in front of what is a reasonably sizable crowd for a Saturday afternoon, of course, here at this World Superbike event. But the first race winner then of the Shell Advanced Asia Talent Cup is Somkiat Chantra, number 18, ahead of number 22, Ayumi Sasaki, the 14-year-old, and it's going to be worth looking out for him in the Red Bull Rookies in 2015 as well. And in third place, Jerry Salim from Indonesia. So 3 different nationalities all on the podium, which is probably exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, watch out for the likes of Sasaki. He came through the Japanese JGP3 Championship the last few years. He was only 14 when he made his debut in the Shell Advanced Asia Talent Cup. He's done 125s as well over the last few years back home in Japan. What happened further back then? So Chantra, Sasaki, Salim, as we say, 1, 2, 3. Masaki was up there in 4th place. Really strong debut for him. Atira Puvapat will be a little bit disappointed with top 5, just running wide there, getting a little bit of pickup on the tyres and acknowledging the crowd as well. Adam Norridon 6th, then it was Kaninime. Asman started on pole, finishes 8th, and it's Razol. Ogura, strong ride to 10th place. Fusay was running quickly and passed Date in the second half of the race. Yuta Date, damage limitation with the injury. Only 12th for certainly the rider I was tipping as the championship favourite based on what he did last season. The first of the Chens, 13th, and it's Anua and Srimontre, another Thai rider, picking up the final point there.
You can see some of the crowd starting to get into their seats, and some that are going to get a bit closer towards the podium, which is actually on the opposite side of the pit wall here, and it's all ready for the top 3, but they're going to come into Parc Ferme in pit lane first, I believe. And first up down into pit lane is number 4, Jerry Salim.
Great ride from Salim. That's the 17-year-old from Indonesia on the podium in his very first race. Did look quick in testing as well at times, but actually finished the test, would you believe, 12th on the combined timesheets after that 3-day test. That's the Pang. There's your man of the moment, though, if man is the right word to use. Somkiat Chantra finally wins. Really did keep his head down last year. First solid season in the Cup. Get the focus in the eyes of these riders as well.
Well, the thing is that, you know, we mentioned that they're young riders, but we should just point out, you mentioned it a little while ago, Kazuki Masaki, well done on his debut in Asia Talent Cup, and I would back that up. But if you actually look at his statistics, he's got over 10 years of racing experience. That means that at the age of 4, he was sent out racing. So it's unbelievable scenes here. As you can see, second place Sasaki, no, that is Jerry Salim. Tiny little rider. But these guys have been racing since the ages of 3 and 4.
This is the footage we'll be watching back if these guys do make superstardom at some point. And don't forget, it is pretty much a direct route, isn't it? If you get it right, to the MotoGP and the Superbike Championships, with the Dorna initiatives up through Red Bull Rookies, CEV Moto3, which becomes, of course, the the FIM CEV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship this year. And watch out for the Asia talent team there of Kaita Toba, Yuta Date, Adam Norridin. Let's see how they get on against the rest of them there in the CEV. But it really is a direct path. There's Titipong Warricorn as well, another Thai rider on the left. He's racing here this weekend in World Supersport.
I think you should dye your hair that colour.
Why?
Oh, I don't know, just give
it's
it
quite
a go.
nice colour, I suppose.
But no, this is fantastic scenes then. Chantra wins from Sasaki and Salim. And let's not forget that this championship is so good because it's putting Asia back on the map again. For so many years, the 125cc World Championship and 250cc World Championship, and even to some degree the 500cc World Championship, were dominated by Japanese riders. Over the last few years, we've not seen quite so many Asian riders in the championship, but now we're starting to see them filter through. And it's certainly thanks to initiatives like this championship here really is starting them off on that yellow brick road.
If you think years back as well, in wildcard performances in 500s, 250s, superbikes as well, of course, we so often saw Japanese riders winning, didn't we? We went to places like Sugo over the years, and now it really is great to see them having a real platform to showcase their talents. As you say, they're children, aren't they, basically?
For so long, though, nations like Thailand have been massive followers of motorcycle racing. They're big fans of motorcycles in general, but they've not had really that much to cheer about. Of course, they've got, they're putting all their hopes on Ratapak Willerot, but they've got Chantra here. Who knows? He might well be a future champion.
There you go then. Chantra wins the first round of the 2015 season in the Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup. Great ride from Sasaki. Played the waiting game. Picks up 20 points. Salim, first race, first podium finish. Great stuff. And it's Masaki, a Tirapuvapat, perhaps slightly disappointed nonetheless. Strong stuff inside the top 5 from Norridin, Kaninime. Asman started on pole and dropped down to 8th place. Then it was Shafiq Razol, who won in Malaysia last year, 9th. Ogura in the top 10, first race, good ride. Fusai, Date will be disappointed, but we know he's carrying a leg injury, so that may well explain that. Yuhang Chen and Sri Montri, another Thai rider, then picking up points. And further down the order, some of the retirements we saw from the Rose McKinley path went down at turn 1 very early on. There was a collision, wasn't there, at turn 3 between Yamanaka and Rostam, and then Izidar, and that was a shame because he was up there in that leading group. He just set the fastest lap of the race, then high-sided on the exit of the first corner. The Golf buggy is in action.
Look at the speed.
The left-hander. They're going to navigate their way across the start-finish straight.
Stop.
They did stop on time. Good driving there by Farhan from Dorna. Up the steps, over the Armco. They're going to have to jump over the other side. No, there are steps down the other side. That's always good news. And across to the podium. You may be wondering why on earth is the podium on the other side of the track. Well, there's a huge grandstand where we're situated, looking down from where this camera we're using now is positioned. And they'll have a great view of these riders as they make their way across to the podium. Don't forget, all of the World Superbike team bosses are watching on as well.
This reminds me a little bit of Laguna Seca as the riders move from the well, it might be a bit different this year, but certainly in the years gone by where the riders were on the podium and then got in a golf buggy, and they were on it for quite some time as they made their way over to the media centre to actually give their press conference.
Yeah, the fans would chase them, wouldn't they?
Yes, yeah, it's...
Motegi as well. Sorry, Steve. Motegi's quite similar as well. Used to it, didn't it, until the new podium came in last year. That the grandstand was on the other side of the start-finish straight for the... the podium was on the other side of the start-finish straight.
As you can see there, all riders out there on Bridgestone tyres and 3 different nationalities. It's always a good way to start the season when you've got 3 different nations on the top 3 steps of the podium.
It's funny as well to see those who were even on the podium and didn't win. They're still disappointed. They were desperate to win that one.
Yeah, well, that's no surprise. These youngsters absolutely, they do everything they can to win. Some of them are quite sore losers in the beginning, and if you look at some of the major superstars of today, you look back at how they were as kids, they weren't too different.
It's fun, isn't it, as well, if you look back at footage of Donington 2008, for example, the 125, Scott Redding won the race. Certain Mark Marquez finished third in that race, and it looks so small when you watch it back now. It's only 7 years ago, but how things have changed since then. And this is the sort of footage we'll be watching back, as I was about to say earlier. If some of these guys hit superstardom in future years, we'll be watching back all of this footage.
Jerry Salim then makes his way onto the podium for the first race of the season. Rider from Indonesia, 17-year-old whose father and brother have both raced before. So he comes from a racing background. And then in second place, number 22, the rider that Greg certainly tips for the future, and I don't blame him, the 14-year-old Sasaki. And then the winner. And a big cheer from the Thai crowd here at the Chang International Circuit. What a moment that'll be. He won't forget that for some time. Number 18, Somkiat Chantra, 16-year-old who was 11th in this championship last year, so some might not have seen this coming. Certainly came on strong towards the end of last season, but he wins here in the first race of 2015.
That'll be a proud moment, won't it, for Salim and the whole of the Salim family. A big banner there in the background, long live the king. Very much shadowing the circuit here. Buriram United Football Stadium on the outside of the circuit. Great facility here as well. They really have put it together brilliantly there. Sasaki, number 22. Brilliant move, wasn't it, early on in the race? Late on in the race when he dived down the outside of the turn 3 hairpin.
Yeah, he looks the most disappointed of the 3 to be up there, though.
And he does indeed. Understandable, Reid. I suppose he was looking for another victory. Did win 2 races last year. What about Chantra, though? Brilliant stuff at home as well. This is the moment the home crowd will really love now, as the Thai national anthem plays out for Somkiat Chantra. Don't forget, he came from 9th on the grid. He'll do the same thing tomorrow as well.
Singing it loud and proud then, the winner, number 18, Somkiat Chantra, and a massive round of applause from the Thai fans who can say that they saw him first. They can say in the future, if he does go on to become as famous as somebody like maybe Ratapak Willarot, that they watched him win the first Asia Talent Cup race of 2015. It really was anyone's in that race. Out of a good 9 or 10 of them, we lost 1 or 2 along the way during the race, but could have been another tie on the top step, as Atira Puvapat certainly looked dangerous in the early stages, but how gutted he will be. He was in the top 3 the whole race, Greg, until that mistake at the end.
Yeah, and it happened a few times last season as well, unfortunately. Very, very quick on the 1 lap. Took 2 poles last year, but that happened a few times last year as well. But just looking down through the order, it's great to see. Chantra wins the race, Sasaki second. They were both in the Cup last year. Salim third, a newcomer. Masaki fourth, a newcomer. Then you've got Atira Puvapat, Noridin and Kaninime, followed by Asman and Resource, all familiar names there. And then Nagura, who competed the top 10, a newcomer to the series. So a good mix of new riders and familiar faces battling it out for victory there.
The Riders' Championship, of course, mirroring the overall race result. Chantra with 25 points. Same point system as Greg mentioned as the MotoGP and World Superbike, 25 all the way down to 1 for the top 15 finishes.
Listen to the atmosphere in the background there with the drums going in the main grandstand. They're really getting into a bit of a carnival mood here. Looking across from the commentary box, by the way, the weather looks all right. Let's take a look back then at some of the key moments that really define this first Shell Advance Asia Talent Cup race of 2015. Helmi Asman started on pole position for the very first time and held the lead brilliantly, didn't he, down to turn 1?
He did, yeah. I'm just looking at number 18 right on the inside of your picture. He actually didn't get away from the line that well. He was probably about 11th into turn 1, number 18, the eventual winner, but he soon managed to find his way up to the front. It was a big high side over into the final turn, into turn 1. And then for a moment it was number 2, Masaki, that was at the front with Chantra and Atira Puvapat, number 13. Number 2 and number 13, regular features at the front of the majority of this race, never ended up even making the podium.
And as you mentioned as well, with 13, Atira Puvapat, he was looking to panic a little bit, wasn't he, as he came through. That was Andy Isidar going out just after posting the fastest lap of the race. That was a big shame. He fell out of that top 10 as it was at the time, leading battle. This was down to turn 3 where we saw so many dramatic incidents, wasn't it? 13 diving through there was a Tira Puvapat. Sasaki was number 22, always looked very strong. Turn 4 here as well. And how many times did we see riders 5 and 6 abreast throughout the race?
Yep, and this is the moment here where Atira Puvapat was just on the curbs and he just ran so wide and the race wind slipped away from him. He went so wide. On the final lap, number 22 Sasaki tried to get there, but it was Chantra that managed to get the first race win of the 2015 Asia Talent Cup Series. Salim in third.